Virtuous conduct for enhancing one's life and society. The commentaries claim that the entire teaching by the Buddha in the Singhalaka Sutta is intended as a layperson's discipline or as a general ethical code. This teaching can be summarized as follows. First section, freedom from the 14 vices. A. To abandon 4 vices of conduct, kama kilesa, defiling actions. 1. Killing living creatures. 2. Taking what is not freely offered. 3. Sexual misconduct. 4. False speech. B. To refrain from the 4 causes of evil. To refrain from acting out of 1. Bias due to desire, chanda gati. 2. Bias due to aversion, dosa gati. 3. Bias due to delusion, moha gati. 4. Bias due to fear, bhaya gati. C. To refrain from the 6 indulgences leading to ruin, apaya mukha, paths to ruin, ways of squandering wealth. 1. Addiction to alcoholic drinks and intoxicants. 2. Attachment to roaming the streets at unseemly hours. 3. Attachment to frequenting shows and entertainment. 4. Addiction to gambling. 5. Attachment to associating with bad friends. 6. Habitual idleness. Second section, preparing 2 assets for one's life. A. To recognize true and false friends you should be associated with or not. 1. 4 false friends. A. Swindlers. B. Great talkers. C. Flatterers. D. Those who urge one to indulge in the paths of ruin. 2. 4 true friends. A. Supportive friends. B. Friends who are loyal in both happy and unhappy times. C. Friends who point out what is beneficial. D. Benevolent friends. B. To gather and protect wealth, to be like industrious bees gathering nectar and building a hive, or like ants building an anthill. One should then share one's wealth among oneself and one's friends by dividing it into 4 parts. 1. One part one uses to provide for one's daily needs, look after others, and perform meritorious actions. 2. 2 parts one uses as capital to support one's work. 3. The 4th part one should set aside as reserve in times of need. Third section, to protect the 6 directions. A proper relationship to 6 kinds of people. 1. A. Sons and daughters minister to their parents who are similar to the eastern forward direction by considering 1. Having been supported by them, I will support them in return. 2. I will fulfill their duties and perform work for them. 3. I will maintain the family lineage. 4. I will be worthy of my heritage. 5. After they have passed away, I will offer gifts and dedicate merit to them. B. Parents assist their children in the following ways. 1. They restrain them from evil. 2. They train them in virtue. 3. They provide them with an education in the arts and sciences. 4. They help them find a suitable spouse. 5. They hand over an inheritance when the time comes. 2a. Pupils minister to their teachers who are similar to the southern right-hand direction by 1. Rising to greet them. 2. Seeking them out, example, seeking their advice. 3. Listening to them and being attentive. 4. Waiting on and serving them. 5. Learning the skills they teach with respect and earnestness, giving great importance to their studies. B. Teachers assist their pupils in the following ways. 1. They counsel and train them in virtue. 2. They provide them with a clear understanding of the subjects of study. 3. They provide them with a complete education in the fields of study. 4. They recommend them to their friends and colleagues. 5. They provide them with security in all directions, instruct them on how to truly apply their knowledge and make a living. 3. Husbands minister to their wives who are similar to the Western posterior direction by 1. Honoring them in a suitable way. 2. Not disparaging them. 3. Not being unfaithful to them. 4. Giving them authority in the household. 5. Providing them with gifts of personal adornments. B. Wives support their husbands in the following ways. 1. They keep domestic affairs in order. 2. They support the relatives and friends of both sides of the family. 3. They are not unfaithful. 4. They protect acquired wealth. 5. They are skilled and diligent in their work. 4a. To minister to one's friends who are similar to the northern left-hand direction by 1. Hospitality and generosity. 2. Kindly words. 3. Assistance and support. 4. Offering constant friendship, being a friend in good times and bad. 5. Being honest and sincere. B. Friends and companions reciprocate in the following ways. 1. They protect one when one is careless. 2. They protect one's wealth and possessions when one is careless. 3. They are a refuge in times of danger. 4. They do not abandon one in times of difficulty. 5. They show consideration to one's relatives and other friends. 5a. Bosses minister to their servants and employees who are similar to the nadir by 1. Organizing work according to their strength, gender, age, and capability. 2. Providing them with wages and bonuses appropriate to their work and living situation. 3. Providing forms of welfare and security, for example, by helping with medical expenses in times of illness. 4. Sharing any privileges or extra profits. 5. Providing days off and holidays. B. Servants and employees support their bosses in the following ways. 1. They begin work before them. 2. They finish work after them. 3. They take only what their bosses give them. 4. They do their work in a well-ordered way and seek to improve their work. 5. They praise their bosses to others. 6a. Householders minister to members of the monastic community who are similar to the zenith in these ways. 1. They act with loving kindness. 2. They speak with loving kindness. 3. They maintain thoughts of loving kindness. 4. They receive them openly and willingly. 5. They support them with the 4 requisites. B. Monks and nuns support the lay people by 1. Discouraging them from doing evil. 2. Encouraging them to do good. 3. Assisting them with benevolence. 4. Teaching them what they have not previously heard or known. 5. Explaining and clarifying what they have heard. 6. Pointing out to them the way to heaven, teaching them the way to conduct their lives in order to realize happiness. To cultivate the 4 favorable qualities, Sangha Watu, in order to build trust among people and to create social solidarity. 1. Generosity, Dana. 2. Kindly speech, Piya Vacha. 3. Active service, Atta Chariya. 4. Behaving oneself in a balanced, impartial way, Samantata. General principles on right livelihood. As mentioned earlier, right livelihood is an aspect of Sila that often gets overlooked. Although only a brief summary will be presented here, the teachings on right livelihood are very meaningful and deserve a thorough investigation. Following are some general principles on this subject. Buddhism focuses on the basic requirements human beings have for existence, i.e., the main purpose of earning a livelihood is to ensure that every individual in society has an adequate amount of the four requisites to sustain life. The Buddhist teachings give precedence to human beings. They do not emphasize an abundance of material wealth, which would be to give precedence to material possessions. This principle of sufficiency is included in the Buddhist teachings on proper governance. One of the responsibilities of a king, for example, is to distribute wealth to the poor, to ensure that there are no impoverished, destitute people in the land. The success of a ruler's work or of a government's economic policies should thus be measured not by a full treasury or abundant wealth, but rather by the absence of poverty in society. In the case that these basic requirements have been met, the scriptures do not pass judgment on how much wealth a person possesses, or whether there is an equal distribution of wealth in society, because these matters are connected to other factors. For example, it is not a goal in itself to possess an adequate amount of the four requisites to sustain life, or even to possess abundant material wealth, because the search for and acquisition of wealth is part of the stage of developing virtuous conduct, sila. The acquisition of wealth is a means for reaching a higher goal. It is a foundation for developing the mind and cultivating wisdom in order to lead a wholesome life and to experience more refined forms of happiness. People differ in disposition and aptitude. Some people are content with a minimum degree of material wealth required to sustain life and focus primarily on developing higher spiritual qualities. Other people, however, are not yet prepared for these higher stages and are more dependent on material things, which is acceptable if they are not involved in harming others. Moreover, there are some people whose disposition and aptitude it is to assist others by sharing material wealth. Their wealth is thus of benefit to others. The meaning of the term right livelihood is not restricted to the application of one's labour for producing goods or for acquiring the requisites of life through righteous means. This term also includes a fulfilment of personal responsibilities, a proper conduct or way of life which makes a person worthy of receiving these requisites. For example, the upholding by the bhikkhus of the qualities of a monk, samana dhamma, and the consequent receiving of the four requisites offered by the lay community is right livelihood of a bhikkhu. Similarly, children behaving well and acting in a way worthy of the care bestowed on them by their parents can be considered the right livelihood of a child. Furthermore, in determining the value of labour, instead of focusing merely on the production of goods for gratifying people's needs and desires, as it may be ambiguous whether these needs are governed by greed or are connected to true requirements for life, the way of Dhamma focuses on the fruits of labour that either support a person's life and the well-being of society, or else act in a detrimental way. From what has been said so far, there are two related matters for consideration. A. In the Buddhist teachings, the relationship between a person's profession or work and a person's material income is twofold. For ordinary people, the exertion of labour is directly related to their profession. One works in order to receive some monetary or material gain to help support one's life. For monks or renunciants, samana, the exertion of labour is independent of employment in the general sense. The intention of a renunciant to put forth effort or to work is not to receive some material gain, but rather to advance in the Dhamma or to uphold the Dhamma. If a monk diverts his efforts from his proper responsibilities in order to specifically seek out the four requisites, this is considered wrong livelihood, miccha avidya. Likewise, if he acts in order to profit materially by soliciting the requisites in a way that runs counter to the wishes of the donor, this is considered an impure livelihood. Apart from obvious examples of wrong livelihood, of deception, flattery, hinting, intimidation, and pursuing gain with gain, making a living by serving others, say by running errands, engaging in various arts like choosing auspicious occasions, making prophecies, and practicing medicine, are also classified as wrong livelihood for bhikkhus. If a monk who is not ill asks for food, fine food, hard food, or even boiled rice for himself and eats it, this behavior is faulty as regards the vocation of a monk. To make the Dhamma into some form of commodity is wrong according to the renunciant's code of ethics. Giving a Dhamma talk with the thought that the listeners may be pleased and one may thus receive some form of reward is an impure Dhamma talk. Even an act of giving that resembles a payment or recompense is inappropriate, as is evident in the following occasion involving the Buddha. At one time the Buddha was walking for alms and stopped at the edge of a field belonging to a Brahmin. The Brahmin said, "I plough and sow, and having ploughed and sown I eat." The Buddha replied, "I too, Brahmin, plough and sow, and having ploughed and sown I eat." The Brahmin was perplexed, and there followed a series of questions and answers spoken in verse. The Buddha concluded by saying that his plough and sowing bears the fruit of immortality, Amata, the deathless. The Brahmin applauded this reply with faith, offered some food to the Buddha. The Buddha refused this food, saying it would be inappropriate to eat food acquired through chanting verses. A pure and righteous acquisition of the four requisites for bhikkhus occurs when lay people recognize the value of the Dhamma and see the necessity of assisting those individuals whose duty it is to uphold the Dhamma. The lay people are made aware of the monk's requirements for food when the monks walk in a composed manner on alms round. The laity then offer food from their own initiative. The effect of this generosity is that donors purify, brighten, and elevate their minds by reflecting on how they have performed a virtuous deed of supporting those individuals who practice the Dhamma and of participating themselves in upholding the Dhamma. In short, they make merit or receive blessings. The monks who receive these offerings are guided by the principles of conduct dealing with the four requisites, which state that a monk should be contented with little and no moderation in regard to the requisites. This is in contrast to other responsibilities of a monk, for example, teaching and advising, which should be performed as much as is possible with the sole aim of benefiting those who receive the teachings. The principle of eating just enough to sustain the body while at the same time performing as much work as possible is compatible for a renunciant, for whom the exertion of effort is completely separate from the material gains of his or her livelihood. A monk cannot demand special rights or privileges by appealing to the amount of work he performs. When renunciants practice according to this principle, the external social system does not dictate their lives. These principles mentioned above have the significant objective of creating a lifestyle that is free from all external social systems. or to create an independent community whose duty it is to realize and uphold the truth, and whose members wish for the complete spiritual purification of all human beings. B. An honest examination reveals that much of human labour in the area of economic production, both in terms of material goods and the service industry, does not truly benefit human life and society. Apart from obvious destructive activity like producing weapons or narcotics, there are businesses that destroy the natural environment, demeaning human dignity or damaging the quality of people's minds, while others are dedicated solely to preventing and solving the consequences of harmful actions. In large part, these kinds of labour are a waste of effort and end up being destructive. Growth in many of these industries requires people to devote a great deal of energy and capital in order to prevent and solve the destructive effects resulting from the production itself. In contrast, labour that truly benefits human beings and society does not necessarily need to be part of the ordinary market economy, as can be seen in an exemplary life in harmony with Dhamma, which promotes human virtue and wisdom. Even from the perspective of output or yield, personal virtue is occasionally more valuable than the fruits of physical labour. For example, a monk may be meditating in a forest without making any explicit effort to protect the forest, but the forest rangers may say that he is more effective in preserving the forest than all of their projects or efforts combined. In terms of true well-being and happiness of human beings, looking at the value of production and consumption is not enough. It is necessary to also look at the value of not producing and not consuming. From the perspective of Dhamma, a person who does not produce anything within the sphere of the market economy, yet consumes the world's resources in a prudent fashion, has a healthy relationship to the natural environment, is better than a person who produces things that are destructive and consumes the world's resources in a wasteful manner. It appears, however, that most economic ideologies praise the latter person, who produces and consumes much, who is destructive, more than the former person, who produces and consumes little, who is less destructive. One should ask whether it is a fair assessment to refer only to the act of production, without considering the amount of waste resulting from consumption, or without reflecting on how production truly benefits human beings. The field of economics is often only interested in statistics, numbers, and monetary growth. Although economics is considered a branch of science, many economic theories and ideologies are limited, inadequate, and incomplete. When it comes to solving the economic problems of human beings who exist above any particular branch of abstract scientific knowledge, indeed admitting that mere numerical calculations and tallies cannot suffice in solving human problems, would act for the benefit and integrity of the field of economics. As mentioned above, the Buddhist teachings are not really interested in how much wealth a person possesses, and the value of a person is not determined by how much money he or she has. Material wealth is viewed simply as a stepping stone to a higher goal rather than as a goal in itself. And the value of money is linked to the practice for reaching this higher goal. The focus in Buddhism is on two stages: the methods by which wealth is acquired and the way that acquired wealth is subsequently used. Buddhism does not emphasize possessing wealth, but rather emphasizes the search for and the spending of wealth. To merely accumulate money for no particular purpose is considered as reprehensible as acquiring money in immoral ways or spending money in harmful ways. There are thus three basic vices in regard to material wealth: unrighteous acquisition of wealth, possession of wealth without using it for one's true advantage, and the spending of wealth in harmful ways. Furthermore, although a person may acquire wealth righteously and spend money in beneficial ways, this behavior does not yet count as complete in regard to a proper relationship to material wealth. This is because the Buddhist teachings emphasize wisdom and the quality of one's mind. A person's relationship towards material wealth must include liberating wisdom, satrana panya. This liberating wisdom implies that one truly understands the value, the benefits, and the limitations of wealth, and one recognizes how wealth has the potential to be either helpful or harmful. Rather than be enslaved by wealth, one should be the master of wealth by recognizing that wealth should serve people and act as a means for developing goodness, reducing suffering, and increasing true happiness. Wealth should not be a cause for adding to personal distress, corrupting people's minds, damaging human dignity, or creating divisions among people. The Buddha described 10 different kinds of lay people, kama bhogi, those who enjoy sensual pleasures, the 10th of which he described as supreme. Among the characteristics of these most excellent lay people, one can see the way of dealing with money that accords with Dhamma, which can be summarized as follows. 1. Acquisition, to seek wealth in righteous ways without abusing or harming others. 2. Expenditure. This stage also includes both saving money and living in moderation. To provide for one's happiness along with the happiness of those for whom one is responsible. B. To be charitable, to share one's wealth with others. C. To use one's wealth for meritorious purposes, including the promulgating and promoting of the Dhamma. 3. Liberating wisdom, to not be heedless with one's wealth, to apply wisdom when spending money, to know the advantages and dangers of wealth, to not be enslaved by money, to rely on money in order to find opportunities for spiritual development. The Buddha gave the following teaching about people's relationship to wealth. Monks, there are these three persons found existing in the world. What three? The blind, the one-eyed, the two-eyed. And how is a person blind? Here, some person does not possess the eye that helps to acquire unacquired wealth or make acquired wealth increase, and he does not possess the eye that helps to distinguish between skillful and unskillful things, between harmful and harmless things, between base and refined things, between things comparable to either bright or dark objects. This person is called blind. And how is a person one-eyed? Here, some person possesses the eye that helps to acquire unacquired wealth or make acquired wealth increase, but he does not possess the eye that helps to distinguish between skillful and unskillful things, between harmful and harmless things, between base and refined things, between things comparable to either bright or dark objects. This person is called one-eyed. And how is a person two-eyed? Here some person possesses the eye that helps to acquire unacquired wealth or make acquired wealth increase, and he also possesses the eye that helps to distinguish between skillful and unskillful things, between harmful and harmless things, between base and refined things, between things comparable to either bright or dark objects. This person is called two-eyed. The blind man with eyes impaired experiences twofold misfortune. He possesses no such wealth, nor does he perform good deeds. Another, who is called one-eyed, searches merely for wealth through righteous or unrighteous means, even through theft, trickery, and deceit. He takes pleasure in sensuality, clever at accumulating wealth, but departing here, the one-eyed experiences torment in hell. Best of all is the person called two-eyed. He distributes his hard-earned wealth, rightly won, is generous, with noble intent, unwavering. He reaches a favourable destination, free from sorrow. One should steer clear from the blind and the one-eyed, and associate only with the noble two-eyed person. The Buddha criticized the hoarding of material wealth without it being used for any beneficial purposes. For instance, on one occasion, King Pasenadi of Kosala visited the Buddha. The Buddha asked why the king was out during the day. King Pasenadi told the Buddha that a householder who was a millionaire had recently died in the capital city, and because this man had no heir, the king had gone to collect his treasure and transport it to the palace. The king went on to say that amongst this treasure there were 8 million gold coins, not to mention the amount of silver. And yet, when this man was alive, he ate only grits with sour gruel, wore a 3-piece rough garment, and went about in a dilapidated little cart with a leaf awning. The Buddha replied, "So it is, great king. When an inferior man gains abundant wealth, he does not make himself happy and pleased, nor does he make his mother and father, his wife and children, his servants, workers and employees, his friends and colleagues happy and pleased, nor does he establish an offering for ascetics and Brahmins. One bearing noble fruit, generating virtuous states of mind, resulting in happiness, conducive to heaven. Because his wealth is not being used properly, kings confiscate it, or thieves steal it, or fire consumes it, or water carries it away, or displeasing hares take it away. Such being the case, that wealth not being used properly goes to waste, not to utilization. This is similar to a lotus pond in a place uninhabited by human beings. Although it has clear, cool, fresh and clean water, with good fords, delightful, but no people would take that water, or drink it, or bathe in it, or use it for any purpose. But when a superior man gains abundant wealth, he makes himself happy and pleased. He makes his mother and father, his wife and children, his servants, workers and employees, his friends and colleagues happy and pleased, and he establishes an offering for ascetics and Brahmins. One bearing noble fruit, generating virtuous states of mind, resulting in happiness, conducive to heaven. Because his wealth is being used properly, kings do not confiscate it, thieves cannot steal it, fire does not consume it, water does not carry it away, and unloved heirs cannot take it. Such being the case, that wealth being used properly goes to utilization, not to waste. This is similar to a lotus pond in a place not far from a village or a town, with clear, cool, fresh and clean water, with good fords, delightful, and people would take that water and drink it and bathe in it and use it for their purposes. As cool water in a desolate place is forsaken without being drunk, so when a scoundrel acquires wealth, he neither enjoys it nor shares it. But when the wise man obtains wealth, he utilizes it and does his duty, having supported his kin, free from blame. That noble man goes to a heavenly state. And on a similar occasion, so it is, great king, few are those people in the world who, when they obtain great wealth, do not become intoxicated and negligent, captivated by sensual pleasures, and mistreat other beings. Far more numerous are those people in the world who, when they obtain great wealth, become intoxicated and negligent, captivated by sensual pleasures, and mistreat other beings. A person who accumulates wealth does not utilize or share it is compared to the mayaka bird, which sits in a fig tree full of ripe fruit and cries, "Mayam, mayam," from the Pali meaning mine, mine. When flocks of other birds come to peck at the fruit and fly off again, the mayaka bird remains babbling away. There are many stories in the scriptures criticizing stingy people who keep money to themselves and do not use it to help others. These stories often recount a change of mind for wealthy, miserly merchants. They provide insightful teachings on the Buddhist view on proper ownership and use of wealth.